on all the places we need to be on there. If you need Chinese translation, we do have, if you follow us on WeChat, you probably already saw it. So make sure you're there. And also, if for some reason Zoom pops out for you today, we are streaming on our YouTube channel, so you can see it there as well. Awesome. Look at all these people from all over the world. I love it. Great. And then let's see, any other kind of nuts and bolts? I don't think I have other nuts and bolts. So we're going to dive in. Today, we are very, very honored to have my friends on the call. My friends from Duke and Northwestern and Vanderbilt. I have traveled with these guys and had nice long conversations in their offices and coffees and conferencing. And so it's really always a pleasure to see them. I'm going to have them introduce themselves personally real quick, and they're going to say their name, where they're from, how long they've been working there, and a fun fact, and a fun fact about you, not your school. Okay. Okay. So Nikki, you want to start us off?
Sure. Good morning. Hi, everyone. And thank you so much for having us, Gloria. So my name is Nikki Baskin, and I'm one of the admission officers at Duke. I think I'm ending my 17th year in the admissions office here. I absolutely love it. And a fun fact about me is I love pugs, pug dogs. And so they're seen as royalty in China. They were originally bred in China. Their wrinkles spell out the word fortune in their foreheads. I currently have 2 pugs, and I have had 4 pugs over my lifetime.
So fun. Okay, Christy, you want to go?
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Christy Callahan. I am an associate director at Northwestern. I've been with Northwestern for almost 13 years now and been in admissions at 2 other schools. So totaling a couple decades now, getting close. Anyway, my role at Northwestern is the director of international admissions. So I'll see your application and manage the applications for our team. I also have done a lot of things with international financial aid during my tenure. My fun fact, I was going to say partially that my fun fact was that Nikki Baskin was on my very first trip for Northwestern. We traveled together in Canada. But that's, I need to make it not about work. I like to use the one, I studied abroad on a program called Semester at Sea, which is very unique. And I circumnavigated the globe on a ship. So that's my fun fact. It's fun.
Yay. All right, Shane.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shane McGuire, one of our senior associate directors at Vanderbilt. I have been here for 12 to 13 years. I have started to lose count at this point. But excited to be here this morning. Gloria, thank you for having me. My fun fact, I'm going to go back to the dog theme here that Nikki brought up. So I have an almost 13-year-old dog. So really, she's been alive since I've been at Vanderbilt. It's a nice sort of good way, I guess, for me to remember how long I've been here. But she's this Alaskan sled dog mixed with a little Shiba Inu in her as well, and some German Spitz. So she's kind of this crazy little dog. Not the best dog to have in a hot place like Nashville, but anyways, she's an amazing little pup. So that's my fun fact.
Awesome. Okay, and for those of you who don't know me, which I don't think you should not know me if you're on this call, but my name is Gloria. I'm one of the co-founders at Initial View, host of Tuesday Talks. And I have run out of fun facts because I keep sharing them on these things. Not that fun. But I guess my fun fact for the day is I'm, as you can see, not in my normal setup. My daughter is on spring break, and so I am at the beach with her. And it is surprisingly cold, so oh well. Anyway, wonderful. Okay, well, people are here to hear about these institutions and to hear more generally about admissions. But first, we're going to go ahead and dive in and talk a little bit about the institutions. Just for a quick second, you're going to do your fun facts about your colleges, if I can get the slide to work. So, yeah, take it away.
So, everyone, welcome to Duke. Just for a couple of moments, we're located in an area called the Research Triangle, part of North Carolina. So we're located in the southern part of the United States. Fun fact is the Research Triangle is made up of 3 cities. So we've got Durham, which is where Duke is located, the city of Chapel Hill, which is where UNC Chapel Hill is located. That's about 15 minutes down the road. And then Raleigh, which is home to North Carolina State University. Also, a lot of other colleges in the Triangle, too. So it's a really fun, academic, worldly place to call home. Our campus is not only in Research Triangle. We have a campus in China, as many of you might know, Duke Kunshan. We also have a marine lab on the coast of North Carolina. We have study abroad opportunities. We have study away located in the United States. And so a lot of different opportunities to also get away from Durham. In terms of academics on campus, a fun fact that I'll share is we have over 400,000 unique academic combinations. And so if you're considering Duke, we want you to consider the variety of classes, both in the Pratt School of Engineering, as well as the Trinity College of Arts and Sciences, because you will discover classes, programs of study, minors, majors, certificate programs that you didn't know existed. And our students will usually have a combination of 3. And it seems like sometimes there's a contest to see who can come up with the most unique combination of academic interests. You couple all of that with our clubs and organizations. We have, I don't know, 400, 500 or so. There are so many unique ways to make Duke your own. We've got lots of school spirit in lots of different directions. And of course, research. We've got an art museum right on campus. So your days are never going to look the same here. Okay, I think that's long enough, right? I could talk forever.
Okay, everyone. So just a few facts about Northwestern. Northwestern University is right outside the city of Chicago. You can see Chicago in the background there. And our entire eastern border of Northwestern and the entire city of Chicago is Lake Michigan. So that's not an ocean. That's one of the largest Great Lakes in America, and it's right there in the middle of America. So we're not on the East Coast, not on the West Coast. We call ourselves the Third Coast, actually. And so our campus is nestled in Evanston, which is the first town outside of the city limits. But we also have several buildings and our graduate schools down in the center of the city in what we call the Loop, right? So you'll get both experiences at Northwestern, this kind of quintessential college town of Northwestern's Evanston community. We have everything you need as a community just staying around in Evanston. We have our own campus, so it's not enclosed by walls, but you do know when you're on campus and when you're off. It's very walkable. There's no cars moving through campus, except you're just like kind of navigating squirrels and bunnies, not vehicles. We have the third kind of part of our campus, I like to say, is the city of Chicago. So the city of Chicago is the 3rd largest city in the United States. We're second only to New York with the most Fortune 500 companies in one location. And there's just a lot happening. We have the Bulls, the Blackhawks, the Bulls, the Cubs, the White Sox, the Blackhawks, the Sky. We have like all of these teams. If you don't know what any of those mean, I'm listing off major national competition level sports teams. But we also have a ton of industry and a ton of entrepreneurship and a lot of bold ideas that we consider the norm in Chicago. Northwestern is similar in that regard. We really kind of span an array of different options for students. We have 6 undergraduate schools and colleges, and we do ask what's most interesting to you at that time of entry. We have those 6 schools so we can offer a little bit of a unique curriculum and more autonomy for each of those faculty. For instance, in the School of Communication, ranging from anything from radio, television, and film to human communication sciences and disorders. So pretty big range just within that one college, also theater. 13 disciplines in our engineering school. So again, there's range at our university that's quite unique, but we want to spark every part of your brain. So we use the quarter system to do that. And we use the quarter system to let you explore any of those 6 colleges while you're enrolled at Northwestern. We also have a ton of fun at Northwestern. We work hard and we play hard. Right now, our right over close to the water is our temporary football stadium. So that's your fun fact for the campus currently. We relocated our football stadium to the lakefront. It's quite amazing if you just Google pictures. We hosted National Lacrosse Day just the other day. So we're using it for lots of things. And that's just while we redo our large stadium. So it's kind of a feature point, been a lot of points of discussion. And we've even played a few games in Wrigley Field. So that's kind of currently what's happening at Northwestern while we cultivate our new buildings and opportunities for students. And yeah, I'll pass it off to Shane.
All right. So Vanderbilt, it's a medium-sized institution, a little over 7,000 undergraduate students, and we are located right in the heart of Nashville, Tennessee, which is in the southeast part of the United States, a city of about 2 million people, fastest growing city in the United States. There's always new and exciting things that are happening here. I know a lot of times when you think of Nashville, you might think of live music. A lot of people think of country music. I promise it is not required to love country music to come to Vanderbilt, but we very much embrace being in Music City. That being said, as you can kind of see from this photo here, we have a very park-like campus. When you're standing on our campus, you could very easily forget that you're in a city. We do have, as a fun fact about us, we have a 3-to-1 squirrel to student ratio. So that's a nice way of us sort of talking about that park-like campus feel. We have students living on campus all 4 years, an incredibly residential experience, tons of organizations to get involved in. We are part of one of the big sort of power conferences in the United States. You get free tickets to all sporting events, so that can be kind of a big part of your experience. And Vanderbilt's having an incredible year in terms of sort of the athletic piece. From an academic side of things, much like the other folks here, we have multiple schools that live within Vanderbilt. We have a liberal arts college sort of at the center of what we do, and then specialized schools in music, education, and engineering as well. And we are in the process of opening a new school called the College of Connected Computing, which will primarily focus on computer science, which we've had for a very long time, but it's moving into this school. And then also having some newer programs in data science and AI and some pretty incredible things that are happening there. An incredible research university, a lot of great experiences to get involved in that if that's something that you're interested in. But lots of exciting things happening with Vanderbilt. We're also opening some new campuses across the country that students can take advantage of as well. So an exciting time to be here. I could certainly talk about Vanderbilt for the rest of our hour, but I will not do that, and I'll pass it back to Gloria.
Awesome. I have heard about and visited all the schools, and yet each time I'm like, oh, there's something a little bit different that I heard. And so that's fun for me. Well, before we dive into some of the questions that I know people have, I'm curious who's here. So I'm launching a poll, and you should see it, and you can just tell us who you are, a student, parent, counselor, or other, and what grade you're in, or what grade you're representing if you're a parent. That would be really helpful for us to just kind of know who's in the audience. And if you were here last week, we were talking about how to engage in a virtual session. Taking the poll is a great way to engage. So would love to see more than half of you taking it. Last week, we only had half the people taking polls. So, and while we're waiting for that, I wanted to do, like, we named this what's in, what's out, what's next. So I did want to kind of start with what's in, like, currently. What are your international student populations like? What's it like to be an international student at your college? If you know, like, where are the students coming from? Like, what's the makeup? Like, it doesn't have to be exact, but just kind of like, and then popular majors and what life looks like on campus. Anything you want to weigh in. So each of you can kind of jump in here.
I can start. Our undergraduate student population is about 8,000 overall, and undergraduate for international, based on citizenship only, is about 12 to 13%. I always like to make sure that students understand that international is like whatever mindset you have under you. It may be that you have a US passport, but you've lived all over the world and maybe never the US, right? So there's another about 2 to 3% of our population that do fall into that category. They're either dual citizens, but they have kind of grown up everywhere else. So I like to remind students international lens is what you're bringing to campus if you're coming from an international secondary school, and that campus community is very robust. So we have over 100 countries represented in our undergraduate student body. That's pretty difficult to do. And I can say that because I've been doing that I've been striving for that for the last 12 years or so at Northwestern. And so when you add in graduate populations to universities in the US, of course that diversifies. But for undergrad, we are really proud of some of the financial aid programs that we've been able to establish to bring in students from really every background across the world. And with that, we're also trying to go deeper into like geographic diversity within each country. So we are always striving to not just hit those big cities and represent them in our committees. We talk about in our committees kind of where are students from in the context of their country and kind of what they're bringing in that regard. And also they have the city of Chicago in their back pocket. So the city of Chicago is so diverse. It allows students that are international to really find some connection around the city to home. It was a city founded based on immigrants coming to the United States. And so there is like an identity space in each of our 90 neighborhoods or so that you can find that you might feel affiliated with. I like to say when I run out of money to travel the world, I'll just travel to a different part of Chicago. So I think that represents a little bit of the connection Northwestern's international students have on campus and in Chicago.
I can jump in next. So it's an exciting time to be an international student at Vanderbilt, and I've been very excited to kind of see that population grow tremendously on our campus. I think when I started at Vanderbilt, we were probably maybe 40 or 50 countries represented, maybe about 6% international, and now we're almost 12% international, about 111 citizenships represented on campus. I will echo what Christy said about that. It is very hard to have that sort of great representation on our campus, but that's also very intentional as we are out traveling the world, as we're thinking about sort of bringing in all those perspectives on our campus. And at the same time that we're doing that, we also want to create this sense of belonging on campus. And I think that's very important in getting these students coming from similar parts of the world, in building that connection and going deeper into some of these countries and doing some of that outreach on campus. We've also been able to increase sort of our financial aid and our funding for international students. I feel like every single year we're able to give more of we have merit-based scholarships, but also more need-based financial aid. Because again, we want that sort of richness of the representation on our campus. And it's also great to have that leadership. Our president, or chancellor as we call him, is actually originally from Germany. And as he has come and kind of taken over at Vanderbilt the past few years, he's continued to sort of expand our global footprint. So it's very exciting to sort of see that. There's also great support on our campus. We have a wonderful office that is helping students as they're applying for visas, as they're making that transition to campus. There's a whole international student orientation that takes place a few days before everyone else sort of moves in, again, to help students kind of find that community and find that sense of belonging on campus.
So the news is very similar at Duke. Of our undergraduate population of about 6,800, about 13% identify or re-identify as international students. And so very broad population. Our admissions office travels extensively internationally with the folks seen here on this screen, as well as some other colleges too, who are terrific partners. And similar to what Christy said, we're trying to also travel places where we haven't traveled before. We're trying to, expand geographic diversity in lots of different ways here at Duke. I think something that's really sort of endearing or we just love when we read applications just students, international students who find us in different ways. And so the schools shown on the screen today, as well as lots of other schools, we've expanded our offerings. So when we can't travel, we have YouTube channels, and so students can discover us that way. Social media takeovers. I think, international students being able to find that programming, when it's convenient for them is really helpful. Being able to bring our campus to students is something, that I think all of us have really increased our programming for students. And so that's awesome. And obviously when they come to campus, the support is incredible. And we're sending out, we've got visa services that will kick in soon after students are admitted so that students can begin working on their paperwork soon after they decide that they're coming to Duke. Things like providing housing if students aren't able to go home so that they don't have to worry about that. They can remain in the States and not have to go back and forth and just have everything that they need here. And so it's been really heartwarming for me to see all of that and the support that students receive. The fact that when students come to Duke, they stay, they graduate, and they're able to take advantage of all of the things that we talked about when we visited them or did the information sessions. They're studying abroad, they're doing research, they're able to obtain, jobs on campus, with some help and with some additional support. So just knowing that international students can live as many lives as a Duke student, as a domestic student, is something that I really enjoy seeing.
Awesome. Just a quick update. We've had over 60% take the poll this time. So yay, we did better than last time. Um, and we have about a third students, a third parents, a third counselors. So kind of a nice mix here. And for the grades represented, it is 57% juniors. So everyone kind of looking forward to applying in the fall. So that's just for everybody's benefit, that's who's here today. Okay, we have a couple questions before I dive into the questions I had that kind of fit well here. We hear that Vanderbilt has a California campus, so people want to hear about that a little bit. Is that happening?
I mean, what campus did you say now? Florida campus?
California.
Oh, California. We have so many different campuses. It's hard for me to keep up with right now.
Oh, well, see, that's what you should talk about.
That is, yes. So I hinted that a little bit in my introduction, but we have been offering some new opportunities. The first one is actually New York, and that it's going to be a study away option that students could do, often while they're probably pursuing internships, but could also take some classes and live on campus for sort of a semester there. There's some things happening in West Palm Beach that it's more at the graduate level, but the newest one is the one in California, and I have very high level information that I can share about that because that is still developing every day there. But we have kind of taken over we will be taking over the College of Arts there in San Francisco, and that will likely be sort of a branch campus of Vanderbilt. Still unsure exactly what the academic programs will look like, but students will be there potentially all 4 years. There could be study away options to Nashville or to New York, but students will live there. They will take classes there. Vanderbilt will sort of run that campus. It is possible that is something that will show up on our application as an option to apply for this cycle. So again, that's about all that I know at this point. Obviously, things are going to change quite a bit in the next few months. So keep an eye out for more information about kind of what that looks like and what those programs and the experience will look like there.
Awesome. And Nikki, people want to know if you go to Duke Quinshun, is that all 4 years in China or is there moving around?
That's a great question. There's some moving around. And so you will have the opportunity to spend some time on Duke's campus, whether it's a semester or a year. And the same happens here at Duke. We have students who are in the campus in Durham who will come over to Kunshan too for that opportunity.
And for all three, given the expense that it is for an international student to come back and forth, during holidays and summers and things like that, what is the housing situation or options for international students who need to stay in the summer, who need to stay in the US in the summer?
So So at Duke, we require all students to live on campus for 3 years. And we do have a good number of students who remain on campus that senior year. We also have some apartments that are university supported. What we did, I guess a couple years ago now, was we actually advised, Duke advised students with international passports to remain on campus, during the summer, during breaks. So instead of going home, just remain on campus. And so when the residence halls were normally closed, they remained open for students who took that option. And so they might be consolidated in, a few residence halls, but everything remained open. Food, all that stuff. And the campus is pretty alive anyway. And the summer's pretty busy with a lot of things happening. And certainly during winter breaks and Thanksgiving break, everything remained open. Students were supported. Also, I just want to mention too, there are a lot of stories about professors opening their homes, just for dinners or movie nights. Like, I think these students also, I know it's disappointing not to be able to go home or to feel like you don't have that option, but it was as welcoming a community as I think it could have been. And so all of that remains. We also, as part of financial aid packages and everything else, we have community closets. So let's say you're remaining during the winter and it's very cold and you didn't pack a winter coat, don't have one. We have those, for free for students, to get winter gear, to get things that they need for summer, special sort of accounts if students need to go to Target to, get some things, to sustain themselves during the summer when they're going to be here. So a lot's happening.
I would kind of echo what Nikki said. I think over the last 5 or so years, I guess 6 now, with COVID, with challenges across the globe, with crises or conflict, our institution has had to adapt, and we adapt in a lot of different ways, and we kind of try to meet each student where they're at. And so if that means staying over the course of winter break, we do our best to make sure that that is provided, or we do give the option to fly a student home if they need to. Again, we're being nimble with how we're responding to the needs of international students with all that's been happening in the world. And so students can rest assured that they are able to stay on campus over breaks, spring break, winter break, or summer break as well. And if that's on campus, we can certainly make that available. But if a student's already living off campus, since students at Northwestern only live on campus for 2 years, they're only required to. We will then, if they're on financial aid, subsidize their off-campus housing as well. And so there is a network. It's a little bit more challenging to find, but in Evanston, going through the application process to write a lease, you do need some financial backing and things like that in America. But our international students have a whole network of kind of like, if one student's studying abroad that summer, we can fill that spot with another student. Or if a student is doing an internship in a different city, you can subsidize their apartment for the summer and things like that. So there is off-campus and on-campus options for students that need it. Yeah.
Not to sound like a broken record, but more or less the same in terms of, yes, international students can stay over breaks. They can work with housing on all of that. So not having to sort of worry about the sort of going back and forth. The only thing I'll add for us is that students are guaranteed housing all 4 years, and technically we actually have a 4-year residential requirement, but sometimes students in their senior year might apply to move off campus, but the vast majority are living on campus. So I always tell that, particularly to international students, knowing that once you get here, you really do not have to worry about housing. If you want to live on campus all 4 years and just kind of have that guaranteed, it's kind of nice to be like, wow, I don't really have to kind of worry about that. But also there's a lot of options very close to campus if you do potentially that last year want to apply and move off campus.
Corey, can I just mention something else?
Yep.
Students should know that the 3 universities represented here today have very active and vocal student bodies. And so our students, and not just international students, but all students on our campuses are speaking up and speaking out about what they need, about what's helpful. And so we don't want you to think that all these decisions are just made for you. you'll be provided at our schools with a slate of options and the support in whatever direction you choose within, the boundaries of what we're able to provide. But our students are their best advocates.
Wonderful. Thanks for adding that. So in our kind of description of the session, we did want to talk a little bit about trends. And before we kind of dive into the trends, like we recognize that, we would like everyone to recognize that I invited 3 institutions that travel together, have some similar things. They're also very highly selective. And so they don't represent all of US college admissions. So I wanted to start by saying that, because I know some people are going to start asking questions about what makes a student stand out. And, what makes a student stand out here for these 3 institutions is going to look different than many of the other colleges that we're going to be hosting throughout the season. So just make sure that you're not taking whatever they say and then applying it to everything else. But I do like having a little bit of a slice from similar institutions for that reason. Sometimes I invite people from very different institutions. Sometimes I invite people from similar institutions. But a question that everybody had been asking is, what is standing out what stood out this year for you, whether it be in an actual application or kind of just overall, let's start with ED, for example. What did ED look like versus early decision versus regular decision? Did you have more people applying early decision? Let's start with that maybe.
I was waiting for someone else to start, but we'll just dive in. Largely at Northwestern and at elite, highly selective institutions in the US, I can't speak for everyone, but the slice that Gloria was talking about, we have remained with similar numbers, if not a slight increase in applications. Overall, in our Northwestern pool, our dean just released some information about this year's class, and we did decrease in just a little bit in the early decision total pool. But for international, that's not true, right? So there's always a caveat when you're looking at news stories or big level data that you need to take into consideration. It may not be representative of your slice, right? And so international applications were up for early decision, and for regular decision, it remains consistent. Really wide variety across the globe as far as where students are coming from, and extremely competitive, right? And so in a lot of ways, it's very much the same. I would say that the one thing that stood out differently when I was reading applications this year and reviewing them and kind of imagining students in our class is just that what students are talking about in their application, kind of what's catching their attention, their activism, their initiative around the globe. I think that's been something that's standing out to me, is that students are using their voice, finding their voice, and making statements about where they want to be, what they want to study, and what kind of influence they want to have in the future and in this world. So I think that that's promising, and I hope that continues, because it's, again, not just about you right now in high school or your previous 3 years, but it's about your future and why you see this United States institution as part of that. So I would encourage that trend to continue.
At Duke, we were slightly down overall early decision. We made it up in regular decision. We were up about 3,200 applications. We, for international students, especially applying early decision, we recognize what a serious choice that is. You have to have your application ready. You have to have done your research, all of that. And a lot of distance traveled there. So it wasn't really a surprise, especially if you consider geopolitical landscape and cost of attendance and all of that. So regular decision looked a lot different, slightly larger pool. In terms of some trends that we saw, something that I appreciated when I read applications this year, it seemed like students were taking inventory of our academic programs a little differently. It seemed like a very intentional choice to apply to Duke for most students. students who, if you think about like the why Duke, why do you want to come to Duke? They can lean a little formulaic, like professor, research, program of study, boom. But there were students who were taking some creative risks, I don't know about this program, but it seems pretty exciting to me. And then they would link it to some work that they may have already done academically. So I thrive in my STEM classes. Duke offers neuroscience. I've never, considered the brain before, but, studying the brain, but this is why I'm really interested maybe in taking this class plus some of the other opportunities available at Duke. I would like to try this for the first time. So we're seeing some students who are veering off the usual path a little bit, which is always exciting to us. Also, students who looked right where they were. Sometimes when students think about making an impact, we hear this phrase passion project a lot, and I don't love it. We like students to make an impact that is genuine, authentic. It doesn't have to be as far-reaching as students think. It can be right in their own community, something that's leaving a little bit of a footprint, maybe even at their own school or in their families. And I also found that students were cracking themselves open a little bit and just letting us inside in a more localized way, which was great. So instead of sort of doing the huge thing that they think is going to get our attention, it was just something small and nice and modest and, kind and thoughtful. So little sort of Easter eggs, I guess, throughout the application, I always find pretty exciting.
I will say this year I was just sort of pleasantly surprised. I think I went into the cycle not knowing what to expect, particularly on the international front. And we, first of all, kind of from a more broader perspective, we saw about a 12% overall increase in applications. We went from about 48,000 to just shy of 55,000. So a really big jump for Vanderbilt overall in just about every population you can think. We've been increasing about 10 to 11% international every year. The increase this year was not quite as big, but it was still up both in early decision and in regular decision. So again, given some of the factors sort of beyond our control, political climate, some of those things, we were just excited to see that the interest is still there, considering and seeing that international population to continue to grow. So overall, and what's interesting is like the increase is not in students that aren't competitive. I think that's also interesting to see is like we're seeing more and more students who are qualified to be here, who bring in these amazing stories and these amazing backgrounds and could easily be a fit for our campus. So it's only making these decisions harder and harder as we're really thinking about who we're admitting and who we're sort of bringing to our campus. And I'll echo a little bit about what Nikki said about most of the students in our pool are academically qualified. They're incredible. But it is this sort of genuineness, this authenticity that we pick up in the things that they're doing, the way they share parts of who they are in the essay or in that short answer that comes directly to us, where we can really start to envision how they might make an impact on our campus or how they might find their footing there, or how they might plug into the classroom or plug into that. I think when they sort of peel back those layers a little bit, that's the stuff that really stands out. That's honestly some of my favorite things when I read through an application, when I'm able to get it. It's like, wow, I really know what this student loves. I can really, they've kind of let me in a little bit into their life, and I can kind of get a glimpse of who they are. There's really that authenticity there.
I forgot one thing. We went a little higher in our early decision admission for international specifically. So we're already just over 50%, but that was intentional because those students are making long-term arrangements to travel very far in kind of all kinds of tumultuous situations. So we wanted to give students a little bit more time, and the wait list was crazy last year across the higher ed. And so we were like, we have these amazing students that want Northwestern. And so we did go a little bit more favorable in early decision this year.
Since you just mentioned waitlists, what is waitlist feeling like this year compared to last year?
Yeah, we don't quite know yet. I think we're all waiting. What is this, April 7th? And so we're, heading into yield season. We've all got these programs planned for our campuses. And, we'll have to see what happens May 1st. At Duke, we we have to see what's going to happen, first of all. For international students in particular, we want to end waitlist activity as soon as possible, for the reasons that Christy just mentioned. Visas, students need to know where they're going, and so international students, we don't keep them hanging on at all. Don't want to.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we have some questions about, and Nikki, you mentioned in the why Duke and just kind of like maybe not sure about a major, but a lot of majors, and they're kind of one, I think, well, my son is a mix of this. There's definitely like, is computer science still like a popular major? There have been a few questions on the different platforms that are like specifically asked, are you all still there? The internet is crashed out.
I think you're frozen.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can
But I think you're asking about computer science and all the trends in AI. You can keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, just that. Is that in the application? Did your CS major interest go down?
I think we got enough to. Oh, I think everyone's still there. I think Gloria just popped off.
Yeah,
So
I think the recording stopped too, but don't worry, she'll be back. And
Yeah, in the
apparently I'm the
meantime-
host now.
Okay, the students
go
are here.
ahead.
Alex Lee says we are here.
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead, Nikki.
So, okay, I'm trying to resurrect the question here. So for our universities, and I think Christy said it nicely at the very beginning, the application will ask sort of like, where are you leaning now? No one at our schools is saying, okay, you have to major in this and stay with this for 4 years. There has to be a little bit of direction because we do have undergraduate colleges. So apply to that undergraduate college. You can be undecided, but you're going to have a little bit of time. You will find, even for students who are sort of veering off the beaten path, and for us, that would be humanities, for example, our most populated majors continue to be in the STEM fields. So computer science, BME, and then on the other side, political science is very popular, psychology, neuroscience, STEM. But yes, so you will have some time to kind of figure some things out.
And as Nikki said, in the context of students using their voice for change or needs on campus, welcome back, Lori. We just kind of ran with it, if that's okay. I wanted to mention that, yeah, AI is now a major at Northwestern as an offering, but that doesn't mean computer science is gone, right? There's always evolution of thought. That's what we're challenged with and tasked with as universities of higher education, especially at the level we're at in the United States, is what's next, right? Where are we developing information, technologies, research. So we want to emphasize that. I remember back when I first started at Northwestern too, like neuroscience was just a minor or a kind of certificate, and then it turned into a minor, and then it turned into a major. So again, we're constantly responding to what the needs are, and that's our task in the fields of different offerings. And who knows, there'll be something new by the time you even graduate 4 years from now. So
yeah, I would echo sort of the evolution that is happening on our campus. And I mean, we're opening a whole new school called the College of Connected Computing, which when it was first proposed, we were like, we're going to have this AI research center. And then as they kind of got into the end, there have been a ton of data science and AI research centers added, but also they're like, we're going to just actually evolve this into a whole school. And computer science, which has lived in engineering for a long time, is now going to be sort of the foundational major over in that school. And I'm sure the computer science is also evolving in what they are doing as AI continues to sort of be more incorporated with that. So our faculty are always on sort of the cutting edge of technology, of research, of what that sort of means to prepare students in those areas. So excited to kind of see how that continues to evolve. And again, I could be talking now about how we have minors in data science and AI, and by the fall, there could be full majors. And likely as the school continues to launch, there will suddenly be a whole new platform of majors and things that students can do. So it's kind of exciting to see these changes happen and just know that we are always making changes and evolving all the time.
Thank you so much for running with that when I disappeared. um, well, and since we're talking about AI, and earlier you talked about what stood out in applications were those authentic pieces, those authentic Easter eggs. There's really kind of understanding of who a student really is. I think there's a lot of concern about AI's role in applications. So just if y'all can speak to that a little bit of like what, when is it helpful in the process and when are you seeing it like where it's not helpful? Like, when we talk about what's out, were there any things you noticed about kind of AI's role in the application and how that might have flattened an applicant?
I'm happy to kick this one off. I love talking about AI. So, well, it's interesting, and some of you may have seen the article that was, it's probably now 2 or 3 years old, where I think it was the Washington Post put a bunch of prompts through AI. And you would see the outcomes and you're like, wow, this is incredibly well written. This is a beautiful short answer essay, but it lacks sort of depth and authenticity. Like I'm not really learning anything about anyone from this. And I think that is ultimately the goal in your application is to share a piece of your story, part of who you are. And there's only so much that AI can do in that regard. I think AI can be a great way if you're trying to brainstorm ideas or even organize your thoughts. It can be a great tool for that, but it is not going to replace voice and authenticity and pieces of who you are. So I think that's where the mistake can be is using AI to kind of do all of that because you're going to remove that voice from your application. So again, make sure that's there. Make sure you really are letting us get a glimpse of who you are as you go through the process.
And from the admission side, this is entirely human. We're not, we read applications, and we read your story and we have a heartbeat just like you do. And so we're not asking anything of you that we're also not providing ourselves. We're not using AI for any shortcuts or anything like that. And so I think that's also important for students to know and to ask colleges because some colleges might be. And I think it's entirely reasonable for a student to ask a college, are you using AI in the evaluation process? And if so, how?
I used to say to students before even AI and ChatGPT have exploded, there were a lot of students who would write their essays as if it was like, insert this here, right? This, I'm going to talk about a professor, I'm going to talk about a course, and I'm going to list the course number, and then I'm going to talk about an activity, right? And it was like very template, like regimented. And those to me used to sound a lot like AI or ChatGPT. And so you need to realize that if you are starting to leverage those too much and losing like what you want to say about yourself and your interests, you're basically like using the 54,000 applications we receive each year to source those essays and kind of pull pieces from all of those. And then you're just going to sound like those other students, right? And so I think that it's important to remember that students were already kind of seemingly sounding like a robot in certain places with some of their application essays. And that means that they were missing that mark. The other thing for what's out, this ties to Northwestern, is the personal essay is out at Northwestern. So the Common App personal essay is not required. And that's further drifting towards this theme that universities are asking you to do, which is focus on the supplements, the supplemental things that we get to know about you that you're not sending to every single other school, right? And so we have 5 supplemental essays, you choose 2. And the purpose of us moving away from the personal essay is saying, we don't want to hear what you're sending to every other university, right? We ask you for a short answer, which is like a personal reflection. And we say, you can use part of your personal essay in this part. So you can actually take a chunk of it and like dial it down and then personalize it. But that's further like telling you Northwestern doesn't want to hear what you're saying to everyone. We want to hear what you're saying to us. And we want to feel special. And that's also kind of how these other platforms like Glimpse and Initial View and other formats are coming up to be useful. So those are supplements that cannot exist in a general essay or a general application.
Anything else that's out, like things you wish people would stop doing?
Taking a million AP tests just to take them, like that's like over testing supplemental areas of topics. What else?
I think taking bad advice. I think, just over researching and trusting sources that shouldn't be trusted. I think it's knowing whom to ask, and just letting it be. And over editing, I think, to our points about essays and so forth, if you send it through the wash so many times, it's going to lose its color, and too many people are going to contribute thoughts and they're not yours. We want to hear your voice. And yeah, that's out.
I also feel like trying too hard to figure out what we're looking for in an application. You're going to drive yourself crazy doing that. And also, every year, sometimes that's different for us, right? We have new things on the table, new priorities that come along. So I would just, again, put this back on you of trying to sort of just put yourself out there, put your best foot forward, tell that story, and don't sort of worry about trying to tailor an application to what you think somebody on the other side of the desk is looking for.
And with that, another thing that's out is trying to find the most random major to apply to because you think you're going to be more rare in our process, or trying to game the system. Like I'm not going to apply for economics because there's so many economics applications. I'm going to apply for something over here and then transfer afterwards. Like that comes out in your application. If what you select as your intent or what your area of interest is, we want to see that echoed in other parts of your application. And the best applications go into depth about why our institution for that topic, or what you're exploring, or what multiple topics you want to explore, majors, minors, things like that. So I see that a lot. Students will read an application, will be like, why did this student apply to this major, right? And I wish this student would have found out about this program that sounds so much better for them at Northwestern. And if they could have like articulated unique things about that, they would have emerged right away, right? So don't try to game the system is what I would say. I think there's a lot of false narratives out there.
I would echo that as well. We actually publish like the number of applications by school at Vanderbilt. And so every year somebody would be like, it looks like it's easier to get into this school. And I was like, if you're a good fit for that school or program, sure. Like a lot of people like, I'm going to apply for your education program. Great. If I look through your application and it's clear to me you have never worked with a child in your life, then you're clearly not going to be a good fit for sort of a teacher certification program. So again, make sure that your interests are driving what you're doing.
Something else that's out, well, I don't want to say out, but something that we do want to address, we have a lot of questions about summer programs, and our campuses do offer these summer programs. They're a lot of money. And we just want you to know that how you spend your summer is how you spend your summer. We all need to grow in different ways. And so think about what you want to do. Think about what's enabling you to grow, how you need to grow. If there's something you need to do, then do it. But just know that having attended a summer program on one of our campuses isn't going to move the needle in a significant way during the application process. So it's not like we're going to see, oh, they did the summer program at Northwestern. That's huge. They get this many points, or that's amazing. It's good. We hope you learned something, but it's not going to change extremes.
These were all awesome. And we are going to have more Tuesday talks talking about these kind of specific things, like spend the full hour talking about kind of one of those subjects that everybody is. But this is great to give us an overview. And I think there are a lot of questions here about, what do I need to have? And I think that's the way that people kind of approach this process. What do I need to have to get into your school? And I think what you're saying is like you have, and then you need to find the school as opposed to like trying to get more to get into your schools. The role, just very quickly because we're running out of time, there have been quite a few questions about kind of minimum academic requirements, like whether that be kind of IB scores, SAT scores, TOEFL scores, things like that. Can you speak to that real quick? Like, I know that in previous Tuesday talks that I've had with you all, you're saying most of the applicant pool have hit the academic, requirements, but how does one find out if they kind of have met that requirement?
We are still test optional at Northwestern and will remain that for next year and hopefully for the future. We use so many criteria to figure out your academic strength. And again, a reminder, the vast majority of our applications, like I would venture to say like 85%, are academically talented and capable, right? Like we don't have concerns about their academic ability for our rigor. That said, we have to kind of investigate which ones would be the best fit. We allow students to take any of the language proficiency courses they'd like. We do recognize that Duolingo is very accessible, so we like accessible, right? We like something like that students give out opportunity, not a barrier. It also gives us a tiny little video, which is kind of fun. And even in things like initial view, you're going to also be doing a writing statement. So we get to see a little bit more writing from you and more on the fly thinking. So I think that there's attributes to some of those standard items, but not required at Northwestern at this time. I will say, if you're at a school that's supporting you to do your standardized exams, and the vast majority of students from your place do them, then it might be more intentional for you to send an SAT or ACT, but only you can make that decision. We can't make blanket statements about that.
And in terms of curricula, we see curricula from all over the world. And it's the admission officer's job to understand, okay, I'm dealing with A levels, I'm dealing with the national curriculum, I'm dealing with IB. We don't have minimums, but we do have, things that will worry us or things that are red flags. We pay attention to schools. Many students on this Zoom call will tell you they attended school with punitive grading. And so we might see lower grades, in the beginning. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, the exam scores are really great, but the marks during the school year are a little bit lower. And so it's being able to, when we're in committee, say, nope, wait, this is a school that, it's a little tough, but look at the exam scores. They're terrific. So it's having that information. So it's having the school marks. As Christy mentioned, if you're taking SAT or ACT and that score is, compares favorably to what the college is saying is their mid 50%, coupled with a Duolingo or a TOEFL or an initial view or, a glimpse if you live in the US, these are ways that we're able to sort of put it all together. But in one way, we're not going to say your minimum IB has to be this. But if we're seeing 4s and 5s, that's going to worry us because you're going to be challenged at the schools here on this screen and so many others. And we need to know that in the end, you can meet the challenge.
I know we're right at time, but I'll just sort of say at the end of we never want to admit a student who we don't feel like can do well on our campuses. So again, while we don't operate in the world of sort of minimums, again, we want to look at that context. We want to make sure that if we admit the student, they're going to come here and they're going to thrive in our community. And now we'll look at this lovely slide on how to contact us.
I know that people have so many more questions, and as usual, it all comes at the very last minute. So I'm going to consolidate these questions and make sure that I have them for future Tuesday talks. But this was wonderful. I really appreciate Christy, Nikki, Shane for spending time with us. Like, you guys were honest and refreshing, and we really appreciate it. And for all of you on the call, I know this is a really stressful situation. I think like my takeaway here is like we often think about the minute steps, but like this is a process and a growth process, and it's not so much the end result, but actually being able to see some of that process that helps these admissions officers make good decisions. So we're going to talk more about it. We're going to take a couple weeks of break before Tuesday talk because there's a lot of travel happening. If you're in China, go see some of these admissions officers on the initial view tour. We'll be back on the 28th to talk about research that came up in some questions about whether or not we should do them. We're going to talk specifically about whether or not that's helpful, and how to kind of, if it is helpful, how to talk about it in your application. So thank you everyone so much for your time, and have a great night, day, wherever you are.